Well, you guys have been waiting and nagging me for, gosh, at least months, if not a year or more, about the sorry state of my configuration.yaml file. All right, we have the one, the only, the Franck, waiting in the wings here. Choo-choo, we got a lot of choo-choos.
How you doing, homies?
Hold on, wait. I'm back.
Nice. That's so cool. That's better. So which one is Frank? Nice one.
It's impossible to tell now. Big thanks to PCBWay for sponsoring this video. A lot of my favorite projects use custom PCBs, like the BH-Onofre, all of the Quinn LED boards, and the HA switch plate. Ordering from PCBWay is pretty easy, and they're always running some kind of special, so you can be pretty sure that you're getting a good deal. They deliver fast, but most importantly, it's good quality stuff. So if you've got a project that needs custom PCBs, check out PCBWay.
So let's talk about configuration, because that's why I'm here, right?
Mm-hmm.
And before we're doing anything, I heard you did an attempt, right?
I did an attempt. Yes, I did. James volunteered. He said, hey, send me a copy of your configuration and automations and a few files. And he split it all up. And then he said, all right, it looks pretty good. And I put it back on, put it back in, turned it on. It was broken. So I think it was kind of like what you said. You said something yesterday about that. Like if you try and change too many things at once, and then you're going to have a heck of a time trying to sort out where the problem is. And that's exactly what happened. So I haven't gone back to it since then.
What you should do in general, like this is not just for configuration splitting, but anything you do in Home Assistant, is just do one thing at a time and check. In order to do that, I wanted to talk about a couple of basics. And the reason for that is because, well, they actually are really important when you split your configuration. The types of variables you need is actually defined by that defines how you split the config or which functions you will need. So it's important to understand that. I was like, let's dive in. Let's do some YAML basics for everybody. Like,
love it.
Maybe a fresh up course, right?
Or a first course for some of us.
First course for some of us, maybe. Yeah, right. So I prepared a couple of documents. It's a small thing. We're going to run through it and then we'll see and dive into your configuration and see what's going on, right? So this is the first page I made, and this is just types and it's empty. So let's talk about YAML first. And YAML has a couple of types. And types are things like numbers, strings. We all seen that, right? So let's talk about strings. So let's show what a string is. And a string is just a piece of text. We all have seen this piece somewhere in the code. And a string can also be formatted as, so this is like, both are two strings, right? So these are both the same. One is with quotes, one is without quotes, both result in the same thing. This is a string. You see a lot of them. We use it for messages and settings and all those things. Integers in YAML are, numbers. So integer 1, that's a number. But this is not a number. That's a string.
Okay.
So it's important to know the difference. Like if you quote that means if you want to have a string with a number in it, you have to encode it. But integers has a little gotcha here. For example, what is this?
Integer.
It is an integer. But what's in there?
Oh. What's in there? The number 14?
No.
Dang it.
As soon as it starts with a 0 in YAML, it will be interpreted as octal. So if you ever work with numbers in YAML and you put a 0 in front of it, you can expect weird behavior. That is good to remember. This is just a gotcha that you have to know. So let's talk about floats. Floats is actually a decimal number.
So that leading 0 is not going to do the same thing as the other one?
No, because there's a 0 dot.
Okay.
Then there's a thing that's called a null. We've probably seen things like this. So these are like Hash.io and Discovery. These are things that some people end up entering in a config to activate like an integration that has no configuration. These are empty. So nulls are empty. There's no configuration in there, but they're still activated. Well, then we have comments. You see a lot of them. And then there's a little catch here in YAML. And that depends a little bit on the YAML version you're in, and that's Booleans. Booleans are yes and no, true and false. So in Booleans, we have things like, so true and false, that's yes and no. But you could also write, this is also true, and this is also false. And this is a little bit of a gotcha here. So in general, you see things like with capitalized or fully capitalized, or you will see yes and no. I would highly recommend to just use true and false in lowercase. For example, let's say you want to set the language to the country Norway. This is not a string. This does not contain the NO. This becomes a Boolean, true and false. So if you ever need to type NO, you have to encode it to make sure it's a string, or else it will become a Boolean. So in general, if you have a Boolean, like if you want to say something is yes or no, use the terms true and false in lowercase. That will just like always work. And remember, if you need a string and it contains yes or no, then you have to encode it. It goes for a string for true and false. So if you want to have a string, true, you have to encode it, or else it will become a Boolean. Does it matter single or double quotes? I see in a question. No, it doesn't matter. So now we come to the cream of the crop, the thing we really need to understand to do a split configuration, which is lists and dictionaries. If you do not understand this part, these two, it will fail. Like a Boolean string, that's fine, that's no problem. But lists and dictionaries, working with those is actually the magic on a split config. So this is a list with 3 items in it. Lists are usually seen by the minus in front of them, right? You make a list of items. Okay. This is also a list. You can recognize it by the square brackets. It's a list of 1, 2, 3, and 4. And the same thing could be done for, these are absolutely the same. So this is a list of integers. So multiple names for this are here. Sequence, that's the official name, I think, for according to the YAML spec. In Python, we call this a list. And since Home Assistant is Python based, you will see a list in the documentation. Some call it an array indeed. So that's another name. Now we'll see something that's called a dictionary, which is called mapping. In Home Assistant world, we call it a dict or a dictionary. Or in some languages, it's called an associative array. That's also a term for this. That's the next thing we're going to do. And basically, that is what we have been doing above already. So this is something like, this is a dictionary. Okay. So this dictionary variable contains a dictionary of items. It maps. It's a mapping. It maps one to the other. It maps keys and values. If you go to the Home Assistant documentation and you will look at integrations, you will see always a list of configuration variables. And they always say, like, this is containing a list, or this will contain a dictionary of a mapping. Sometimes it's called mapping. Let's pick up a small automation file. And if we look at your automations or anybody's automations file, that's how the configuration starts out, you will see it's actually a list. Every item in every automation is an item in the list. It starts with a dash, right?
Yep.
Okay, but the automation itself in that array is a dictionary. So this is a list of dictionaries.
Okay, I see that.
If that makes sense.
Yep, yeah? Yep, okay. Now it does.
Okay, if we start doing splitting configuration, like let's say we split it out, like we put each automation in a file, and we load up these files, we have to tell Home Assistant like each of these files is an item in a list. And these files contain a dictionary, for example. So that's why the splitting is important, because we have split it, like the configuration across files. We load those files up, and it has to be in the right format on the place we inject it, like in the place we include it. The place we're going to use it has to have the format. Now we're going to go into Home Assistant, like we have to jump up.
Okay, here we go. Now the meat. Oh boy.
Yeah, this is going to be difficult to understand, but
that was the easy part, huh?
Yeah, we had the easy part now.
Okay. Woo-wee. All righty, bring it.
The first one is quite easy. It's the first. It includes a YAML file, and the contents of that file, the YAML, is placed inside as a value of first.
So everything inside that file.yaml, yes, it would appear as if it were starting with the exclamation point on include.
Yes, let me show you an example. If you start out with Home Assistant, but this is like the basic config, it loads the automations.yaml right here. Mm-hmm. And this is using the include. So this is the automation integration. Automation is an integration in Home Assistant. And its configuration is, like its value is the contents of automations.yaml. This list with the dictionaries in it is actually the same as doing this would be the exact same result. That's what the include does. It
Okay.
just loads up that file.
Indentation, spacing things. When it starts here, it's already doing a return and doing a space in, right? Or two.
Yeah, it already handles that. It just picks up that content and will.
So when you make your automations.yaml file, you just start with a list with the first item in your list with a dash right at the top left corner, first box, and you go from there. Okay.
It doesn't have to be indented. And by default, indented here, there's no indentation here, right?
Right. No indentation there.
Nope.
Okay.
It is important to make indentations that indicates if something belongs to this list. For example, this trigger here, if I pull down this trigger is now part of this list, but it's not a list item. So this is a list item and this is a dictionary, and the YAML parser, I'm not sure if you have it in Visual Studio, will probably go nuts now. Include. So that's the include. Include is the most simple form. Picked up the contents of the file specified, put it in as a value to this thing I have here, to this key. This is called a key. First is a key. Now it's becoming like a bit difficult. We're going to talk about include functions, the dir list and the merge list. And what these functions do, the dir list and the dir merge list, actually will always result in a list. But if you want to include like a directory of automations from the automations folder, which has multiple files, automation expects a list, as we have seen.
So automation, I'm guessing, is a directory. Is that right? And then in that directory, you would have garageopener.yaml and bathroomdoorlock.yaml. And each of those things would be an item in the list. So you could have each separate automation as its own file.
Each file will be picked up as an item in the list.
So you don't add a dash. The dash will be...
Yeah, it will be added by this function, this dir list function.
If I were to do that and leave the dash, it would cause a problem. If I were to take cut my automation,
a list on the list.
You can't triple stamp a double stamp. I got you.
So this is the dir list, and it works recursively. So you can go in and make directories in automation, even subfolders, and it will pick them all up. It will just go through them all, picks up each file it can find, and it will put them in the list. This is almost the same. This is include dir merge list. There's a subtle difference. It expects that the files that it includes contains the list itself. You would keep the dashes, and it will get all those files and picks up all those lists in the files and put them together in one big list. So if you would apply this to automations, it is basically the same, except you can have multiple automations in one file. So this would allow you to create a file, for example, we'll call livingroom.yaml in the automations folder, and put all your living room automation file.
So you're doing a list of like switches in the configuration. If you did merge list, you could say living room switches.yaml, and in there you would say dash, and then the switch, dash, the next switch, dash, the next switch. Then you have a different file that is bedroom switches.yaml, and in there you would have dash, switch, dash, switch, dash, switch.
So the first example, like this include dir list, and will force you to have just one item in each file. So this will create a ton of files, and this is probably one of the most commented thing about my configuration, because I prefer this. I prefer to have one item in each file. But if you do not, you could also use this one and have multiple things and categorize things. So this will allow you to, like, these two functions will allow you to like define how you will store lists. So you have to think about it. What works for me? This is what the most people do wrong. Like the merge and the dir are two like really different ones, because, well, one expects no list in the files and the other one does. So the results of both of these functions is a list. So the next two are kind of similar, but like same, not same.
Makes total sense.
Right? Yeah, make total sense. They are called named. It's the same, but it gives back a dictionary. So this is important why we should know the difference between a dictionary and a list. Because if something expects a dictionary, for example, groups or zones, those are dictionaries. This is not a list, it's a dictionary. So if I would split group, I would not use the list functions. I would use the named functions, which result in a dictionary. And dir named does basically the same as the dir list. It takes each file and expect the contents of each file to be part of the contents of a dictionary. However, it picks up the file name as the key for the dictionary.
Oh, okay. The file name is the key. You don't put the name, you don't put the key at the top of the file. The file name is the key.
So if we go to groups, I will create a file called bathroom, like is shown here, and I will put name entities in it. And I will create a file hallway.yaml and put these in it. However, if you want to do the same as we did with list, like if you want to combine multiple as per area, you can use the dir merged named. It will merge the contents of the file into one big dictionary. The functions without merge, they actually think they have every single file is an item in the list or dictionary. When using merged, it will assume the files contain a list or a dictionary already, will pick up the contents of all these files and smash them together in one big list or dictionary. It's basically the same as with automation, like one automation in each file versus multiple automations in one file. With dir named, it's like one group in each file versus multiple groups in one file. Well, I think it's important to talk about this. I kind of expected this would like not land, and this is probably the reason why most people like do not get it right. But we have to go through them and we have to talk about them, and later we will probably say, okay.
It's so much better to do it this way, Frank. No, this is exactly right. It's so much better to do it this way so that we have an understanding of what these things mean. Now we can see how we apply those when we're trying to organize, 2,000 lines of YAML or whatever. And I think this will save a lot of people a lot of trouble, and probably will fix some problems that people have had by trying to do it themselves. So
I got one little secret trick. Why this is important, it allows you to include automation integration with your old automations.yaml file, which you already have. But if I would replace this with the new one to a folder, your current automations would not be loaded. So you have to migrate all at once, and that hurts and is error prone. So if we add a space after an integration and then a random word, it doesn't matter what, it will load automations twice and it will load them both.
Okay,
so if you start doing splitting your configuration, what you actually can do with is adding that additional line to your configuration. Pick up one automation out of your automations.yaml, put it on its new location, check your configuration, restart, and everything works. Pick up the next automation.
Oh man, so you don't have to say, okay, I need 4 hours today because I got to split out these 50 automations. I gotta get comfy in my chair. No, you put this and then you just say, okay, well, even if you don't change any of your old ones, you just say from now on, when I make a new one, it's going to be its own file and it goes in the automations folder and it will be loaded as well. Hot dog.
Or maybe even like, I don't know, you want another one. This will work. There's another really, really important thing for this. I've heard a lot of people telling me, I've split my configuration and now I cannot use the editor UI anymore for automation. So I cannot go into the UI and create automations. This is because the automation editor in the UI will always write to automations.yaml. So what my tip would be is leave your automations.yaml, this include, as is. And even though it's empty or not used, if you leave it there, it will just work. And if you go to the automation editor and it will write in here, it will work.
But if you want to manually do something, put your second line there and take your manual automations that you do and you put them in your other folder.
So this is the 101 course. We did some YAML, did some multi-line strings. We over the includes, even though it's pretty hard to understand yet. And we had this little secret trick. So this is like the basic of YAML and all the include stuff. There isn't much more to tell about this.
We've had our 101 class. We understand some things that are going to be good, useful tips and tricks. Now it's time to
do something.
Time to get the knife out, right? It's time to start chopping.
Let's do automation. I have an automation file here. Let's split those. Create a folder called automations. There's nothing in here. And let's create automation1.yaml. And let's pick up the first automation of my automations file. I'm going to cut it out. Then I'm going to add it in here. So now we have my old automations file, which still has 2 automations. And I got a new one in place. So now we have to make this work. So if I go into configuration.yaml, the old one is still in here, right? But we need to load up the new one. It expects a list, and I want to include everything at automations. Right now, for this configuration, we've split it one automation. One automation is now living in the automations folder, which is loaded in here. It picks up the contents of this directory, and each file becomes an item in the list. And we still have the old automations file running. This will be a working configuration right at this point. Let's do the merge example. Let's say we'll make a folder called groups. And for groups, we decide we want to create a file per area. We create a file called inside the house. So let's pick up these two groups. So let's say we make a file called inside, and I want to do multiple in a file instead of one as we did with automations. Then we need to merge stuff.
Okay.
There we have it. So we now split the inside, and we have the group, which still contains some old ones. Yeah, that should basically do it. So we now partially migrated it.
Oh, hi, everybody. Say hi.
He's also wearing a stupid hat.
Yeah. Thank you, Han. Love you too.
Oh my gosh. Oh, the ninja. The
One
ninja.
Holland and both stupid hat.
You know what I would start with, by the way?
What's that?
Integrations.
Make a list of just the integrations?
Yeah.
Ooh, I like that. I like that. Okay.
So one of the things I see here, which is perfectly nice to do because it's small, is probably weather. It's just dark sky here. It's an integration. It has a list. It has a configured item. Let's split that. Let's get that one out first.
All right, let's do it.
Okay. I would say make a folder in your config called integrations.
So we've got an integrations folder. Okay.
So let's create a file weather.yaml.
Okay. All right. So now we can go back to configuration. We can take this out.
Put it in weather.yaml. So we need to adjust your main config to be able to pick up this stuff.
Right.
So that packages, that's the key. You can copy that line. Just put it in your config. So what you basically have now, the packages are loaded from the integrations folder. So basically the splitting config makes use of the thing called packages. And you have a weather.yaml now in the integrations folder. So basically this should be it. This should already work. So if you check your configuration, everything should be fine. Let's do that before we go anywhere else. And now everything will explode because this is like the most difficult.
Beautiful. Bingo. Pass. We're just going to move them down like this. And now it's a N95 face mask.
Now we have the basics going. We could dive into the automations.
And then I was going to say, what about reloading? Because I use packages, I can't use this reload automations button. Is that still?
That's not true.
That's not true.
That's not true.
Okay. Anyways, let's go look at the automations include. So there's my automations include.
Yeah, we need to pick up this
another.
line. Yeah, make an automation.yaml in your folder you just created, where weather is now, and put these two lines in there.
Okay.
Automation. It's singular. And let's put these two lines you had in here.
And now this is going to have to be include.
Mm-hmm.
I can't remember now if it's merged or not merged.
The question is, do you want multiple automations in a single file?
I think I want each automation in its own file. So then I would do just list.
Yeah, that's correct. Because you're not merging it. Correct. You want, list.
This.
Now the interesting part, because we're in like a subfolder, right? We have to break out of this. So we have to go up 2 folders. Your automation YAML is there, then you have integrations, and then you have packages. And then the config folder is there. That's 2 folders you want to get rid of, integrations and packages. You need to go up 2 times, .. /..
And then I would be the name of the folder that I'm going to put these in.
Yeah, no space in there. It's
because this is also up
2 folders relative to this file in this location.
Or we made this automations file. Now we need to go up here and make a folder for automations.
Yeah, there you go.
So now anything that's in this folder,
every single file in there is loaded as an item in the automation list.
Okay, let's check it. It passed.
It passed. That's good.
Okay.
Just for illustration, this is my automations folder. I've made subfolders for each area I have in my home and put automations in those folders. So I like group my automations that way. If you have 300, create 300 files in one folder, which is just as big as a mass as in a single file, right? So use folders. You can use them. It doesn't matter.
So I can put in this automations, I could say like a new folder that is garage.
Yeah.
And then I can put all my automations that have to do with garage in there. This is for Janice's garage door. So if I cut this out, a new file, and we'll call it, and I paste this, but I don't want that dash anymore, correct? Okay.
Correct.
I can do this, and then I can take all this, and I can control bracket and move it back over there, and save that, and go back
still pass
to Home Assistant and check it. And that's the process, just over and over again, right? Just chop out a little, put it in the right place, save everything, go to configuration, check it. If you pass, keep moving.
You can do this with every single step and integration you have defined in your configuration project. And if you continue that process, you will end up with something like I have with 2 lines.
You can do it however you want. You can organize your folders and your files however you want. To go back to the very beginning when you were teaching us our YAML basics, is make sure that you're following the right format for lists and dictionaries. Because if you mess that up, then something's not going to work.
Don't sit down for 4 or 5 hours trying to go through it. Do something every day. Improve your system every day. If you do like 15 minutes a day, you will like spend an enormous time on a year, and you will end up with something like humongous and totally awesome.
Go back here.
So now you have the basic, right? This is what it is.
Okay.
You now have a trick to have both active at the same time, your old stuff and your new stuff.
Right.
And you can start like organizing it.
Maybe I should make a sensor. Can I make a sensor that says how many lines are in my YAML file and in my configuration? And every time I delete something and it goes down,
I'm not sure, but you should not add that sensor to this.
So we got the basics. We did some good stuff. I can take it from here. All right, everybody. Frank, thanks again, man. So appreciate everything, and good chatting with you. Good being with you. And everybody, have a good one. We'll see you.
Don't break your configuration.
Don't do it. It's not worth it. All right. We'll see you. See you tomorrow, everybody. Bye-bye. If you need help or want to chat with me or others who also enjoy projects like this, you can find us on Facebook and Discord. If you like what I'm doing and you want to support me, you can use my special product links in the video description, or head over to Patreon, or just like and share my videos. That's easy. If you like this video and you want to see more like it, this box will take you to a playlist of some of my favorites. In addition to videos like this, I also do live streams every Sunday. This box will take you to a recording of the latest live stream. That's all for now. Adios.